Being a human, do you think we are good or bad? Well, there's no definitive answer. Some, like philosopher Thomas Hobbes, think we are bad. Or some, like philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, think we are good. The answer to this seemingly easy question really does take a lot of effort to generate, doesn't it? Because we have seen examples of both. Well, one person gives their money away to the poor. Another person steals that money away. So we can't know for sure. But what we can know for sure is that both actions, giving money and stealing money, are both motivated by the same reason. That is, self-interest. But wait, how on earth is giving money and stealing money both motivated by self-interest? Are you out of your mind? You might question. Well, I'm going to show you that I'm not, and hear me out. My name is Henry Ho, and today I'm going to show you how to use self-interest to do something good. And the question that I'm going to explore here today is that, is self-interest always a bad thing for others? Well, although greed and selfishness both fall under the scope of self-interest, as we're doing that for our own good, I would argue that the term self-interest is essentially a neutral term, as gaining advantages for yourself can also mean a good thing for others. An example of this would be giving to the poor. You give to the poor because you want to help them, and by helping them, you will gain a positive psychological boost, which is to your advantage. But at the same time, the poor benefit from your action too. So, I think there has been a popular mix-up in the definition of the term self-interest. Because when you come across the term self-interest, immediately images of greed and selfishness will no doubt come to your mind. But why is that? Allow me to reply you in question form. How often have you ever heard anybody who says that self-interest could be a good thing for others? Not very often, right? The term self-interest is conventionally used to describe something that is done with a negative intention in mind, and therefore, when our brain comes across the term self-interest, immediately it will perceive it as a negative thing. So, according to the Macmillan Dictionary, the definition of the term self-interest is gaining, quote, advantages for yourself, often without considering other people. So, can you spot something from the definition? Well, other than it supports my point above. It is the definition's use of the term often without considering other people. Because by using the term often, this conveys a sense of an uncertainty within the author, because if the author is so certain that self-interest is always done without the consideration of other people, they would have this term always, wouldn't they? But why often? So, but why haven't we seen that many people using self-interest to do something good? For example, by helping others, you might question. Well, you're right. We haven't seen that kind of thing. And the reason why is a lack of motivation to do so. And in game theory, a zero-sum game in which I will have to lose something, be it time, money, or so on, in order to help you. And this can be further explained by the concept of loss aversion, mentioned in chapter 26 of psychologist Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow. So a simple definition of this term would be that we tend to put our attention on our losses than gains. So, given that the act of helping others often incurs a cost for ourselves as we're using our time, energy, and money and so on to help, we have no motivation to do so. So, how do we give people a motivation to help? Well, since we know that it's hard to ask us to do something for others, because often the focus will be on our losses, I was thinking, why not tune our mindset and ask us to do something that is beneficial for ourselves instead, but at the same time beneficial for others? This therefore transforms the zero-sum game mentioned earlier into a non-zero-sum game, i.e. a win-win situation. Well, I'm not trying to be cynical here, but I feel that in order to further promote kindness, we need something that provokes the inner goodness within us. And by redefining what we conventionally perceive as a loss to something that is a gain, we'll be able to accomplish that. But still, I understand, it's hard to ask all people to give money, but what about something free, but profound, like caring and empathy? We can still trade caring and empathy and get a satisfaction, and get a feeling of satisfaction within us for exchange, and it's still the same. Well, in an objective sense, the act of self-interest also extends to necessities like eating and sleeping. Why? Because doing so, it will be advantageous for the growth of our bodies. And so from this we can conclude that anybody who eats and sleeps has their self-interest in mind. To clear up, I'm not trying to ask people to abandon self-interest, because, well, that is impossible. What I'm trying to say here is that we need to convert negative self-interest into positive self-interest. Well, however, according to Friedrich Nietzsche, in his book Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche questioned, how could something originate from its antithesis? In other words, how can something come from its complete opposite? And one of the examples he gave is called the unselfish act in self-interest. However, from my explanation earlier, we can see that the unselfish act originates from self-interest itself, rather than its complete opposite. The audience, just imagine how the world would be like if all of us are helping each other, but at the same time helping ourselves. Wouldn't more people be benefited? But right now, you might ask, how do we implement this in the real world exactly? Well, my solution to you is easy. Whenever you see a person in need of help, just go ahead and help them. Because by helping them, you are actually helping yourself as well. So from now on, why not help ourselves by helping others? Thank you.